Hey guys, and welcome to Pheas Airsoft, where today we're going to do a disassembly and internal review of this KWA RN47. Hi guys, and welcome back. If you do enjoy this content today, please do like, comment and subscribe, especially liking because it helps me get seen and you'll be really helping me out. Quick point on safety: if you're going to do this sort of thing, make sure your eye protection's on, batteries are out, mags are unloaded, all that kind of thing. I'm being safe and you need to be too. So hopefully you've seen my recent unboxing, and I've already done the sort of motor upgrade video that's coming soon as well for this. So when I do disassemble this, it will have a ASG Ultimate motor in there, not the standard motor. Just to clarify, it didn't come in there, so watch out for that video coming soon. So we'll get started. So we're going to start at the front. I'm going to remove the front muzzle brake. I have got on, as you can see, my rather lovely luminous green RN47 hoodie, which I absolutely adore. It's great. It's not very tactical for playing airsoft in, but it's good if you're walking down a street and you've got no torch in the dark, you're walking your dog. Perfect for that. So I've used a T6 here, and that's just loosening up that grub screw in there. Now, unfortunately, on my precision screwdriver set, the magnet's broken and fallen out at the end of that, so it now just barely holds onto the bits. So that's a negative thread. It's just going to unscrew quite nicely and come off, and there it is. I'll put that out of the way, get rid of the little end cap for now, and the little spring as well. There we go. So that's the first part. Obviously the muzzle brake was just a 14mm negative. Now if you are going to run a tracer, depending on the tracer, they may not necessarily fit into the handguard here, so you might need to use a little stubby barrel extension, but the inner barrel doesn't run the full length. The inner barrel sort of stops back here somewhere, so you don't need to worry too much about it going too far. So I'm just going to get a screwdriver and we're going to remove just look at the upper. So the front flip sight is just a flat head screw. You undo that, take it out, and that will just lift off. And the same for the rear sight as well. So I'm going to leave that bit there for now. I'm going to move to removing the rail. So, is it 2? Nope. So for this one, I've got a 2.5 hex head bolt piece for this. And it's just the same as we usually get on a KWA. We'll get 3. Stuck that. We get 3 screws, 2 that come in from the left to the right, and 1 that comes back through the other way. Now that should just, there it goes. It's quite a nice snug fit, and off it goes quite nicely. So we've then got 2 grub screws here that when I undo these, this gas block will come off and take the tube with it, and then we're left with the barrel nut. Now, a lot of people have asked questions about this barrel nut. Is tightened down with glue in there. So to get this off, you need to remove the gas block, take the upper off the gun and strip out the inner barrel and the hop unit, and then gently apply heat. I was speaking to John at JTAT, and he was saying that using like a heat gun, gently apply heat just long enough until the glue gives, basically, using like an armourer's wrench in the holes to just get it off. And then after that, it's absolutely fine. You might want to spend a little time cleaning the glue out after that to get rid of it and stuff, but that's how you would get rid of the outer barrel there and change the outer barrel and the nut itself. So next thing we'll do is we're going to split it, and I'm going to remove the stock. So I'm just going to keep pressing the button until the stock's released. Now it is a TK45 compatible upper. I'm just going to pop that pin out. So there's a front body pin here that I'm just going to push out. Now that's quite firmly in there, so that just needed a good tap with a screwdriver. That's reassuring that it is so well in there. So I'm just going to pull back on the charging handle, and the whole thing should slide forward. Now it has got the same TK45 plate at the front there, which can sometimes jam, and the dust cover can get in the way. And there we go, it's pinged off. I'm just going to slide that out. There's the old familiar TK KWA Gearbox that we're used to seeing now. So it has got the identical setup to the TK45. So you've got your little blanking plate that sits in a little track there. So you push your hop forward, the little plate sits in there, and the hop up stays centralised like that. When it slides back into the gearbox, I'll slide this out and show you. That is a tiny little barrel. I will at some point probably upgrade this barrel. So it's got two little notches on the hop, and that helps to centralise it. If you look on the front of the gearbox, you've got two little notches cut out there that sits into to sit in the right position. So it's centralised to keep the hop in the right position for the mag. So the barrel itself then, I'll turn the hop all the way on. So that's a fully on hop. So you should be able to see that is the split type bucking at the top. Now, to me, it looks absolutely identical, and I will sort of take it down now for you. It looks identical to the standard hop rubber that we've seen before, but performs significantly better. So I don't know if it's a change of compound, if it's just in quality thing. I don't know what kind of witchcraft they've performed on this, but it is now significantly better. So I took the O-ring off. There was just an O-ring that I removed very delicately with a flathead. The adjustment ring comes off, and then you've got a C-clip round here. When you are fitting a replacement hot rubber, at times they can run a touch longer than the standard hot rubber. So it's perfectly fine to just trim a mil or two off the end with some scissors or whatever to be able to replace it and get the clip back in. The clip needs to sit back flush as it was then, otherwise you're going to have issues getting it back into the outer barrel and stuff. Now, the reason I've done this upside down is so that the little knob that's in there, the tensioner, doesn't come rolling out, which I will have a look at in a second. So there is the standard hot rubber. Now, I can't see any difference to what they've done before, but that's working really, really, really well and really nice. In terms of the nub, the tensioner then, nub, there it is. So it is just a normal little black rubber tube, nothing special. So we'll push this pin out. That's really stuck. Get my needle nose on that. So just clip on that. There we go. That's all it needed. And there's the adjustment arm as well. So we'll rebuild that shortly on video, as we will rebuild all of it. Just move things obviously out of the way, just so we keep tabs on them all. There's the stop. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the stock assembly. So just remove the battery cover, and straight down there we've got a Phillips head screw. So just got a chunkier Phillips head. Now, that wasn't the tightest screw in the world. Not a bad, not necessarily a concern, just obviously something that's worth tightening down if you're going to be, you know, running this and things. And this will just, now that that's loosened off, just slides out as easy as you like. Manipulate the wiring a little bit. There comes this screw and the bracket. There's the fuse and there's the Deans. Now, I will be in a future video, installing a gate tighten. I've been requested to do it live as well. So if you are interested in seeing it done live, let me know, because that's definitely something I will do. So you've got there a little, it's kind of very reminiscent of a typical AR stock tube on an airsoft gun. You got this little plate. So it is shaped with two little light lugs that fit down into here against the two little lug points, and the screw just sits in it. And it screws into and tensions into this point here. Now, with that removed, I didn't need to remove this, but I can insert the variable FPS tool down into here now, and it connects through into here, which I'm going to release now. So that's just a push in and a quarter twist. So there we've got, in this, the non-recoil type, it does run a typical AEG spring non-recoil. Now, that's quite a tough spring, considering it's giving sort of 340 FPS. I would have thought the air seal's not amazing, which we can look at later. The way the variable FPS works is when it's in there and it starts twisting, it's basically just opening this up, so it's compressing your spring, which would obviously give you more FPS, and then it's wound back down to give you less FPS. I think it's about 30 or 40 FPS variance it can give you from fully sort of extended, which is that, giving you the lowest, to fully compressed is the highest point. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the charging handle assembly and the ejection sort of port part, just because I don't want those to get damaged while we're doing anything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a screwdriver on this little clip here. I'm just going to pull this forward, and then I'm just going to flick that up and out like that. Now you can see a little screw in here. This little screw, it's important that you don't tighten it or anything, and you're careful. This plate should run smoothly behind that screw. It's helping to retain it when it's all in place. So I'm just going to unhook the spring off this clip here, and then I'm just going to twist it towards me slightly, and it all comes off. Now I'm going to be very delicate because this plate is quite soft metal, so I'm going to delicately place that out the way. And moving on quite nicely now. So next thing I'm going to do, I've got a hex head screw here, which should take, I was going to say it's the 2.5, it is the 2.5, so it's using the 2.5 hex head again. I could have used the Torx quite easily, but that fits, so I'm taking it. So that just slides off, and that's obviously your sling plate, and it helps to centralize this particular component, which is like your part of your buffer tube assembly. So to remove this then, it does screw out. It's also part of the reason why it's easier to install a tight gate in one of the non-recoils than the full recoils, is because this can be removed. So I'm just going to hold the wire in to the left there. Now and it will pull it across. It is going to catch a little bit, but it's not too bad. It's just minimizing it. There we go. I've got it in a nice sort of sweet spot up against this corner here, and I'm just unwinding it. There we go, and that just comes out. It will only go in so far, and then you just wind it back to sort of the correct alignment like that. You can see it's just nipped the outer sort of heat shrink shrouding, which is absolutely fine. That means it's doing its job and protecting it. So getting closer now. Next thing we're going to go for is we're going to have a look at removing the mag release assembly. Now obviously this is a little bit different to normal because you've got three. You've got ambidextrous AR style mag catch, and then you've got a third handle underneath, AK style, to release the mag. So I'm hoping that looks like, now that is a Torx head. Well, it's sort of borderline between Torx and hex head, but that's quite a large head in there that requires. That makes me really happy because that shows some redesign and effort. It's too big. Did that go in? No. So hopefully it is. It's a Torx 8, so I'm using a Torx 8 head for this bit now. Now I'm not sure, so I'm going to remove this. Now let's see what happens here. So does that come out? Oh, that literally sprung out. So there's the button and the spring, there's the mag catch, and it is just like an extra latch there that is catching on, you can see there, look, moving inside of there, catching on this button. So what I'll do is when I get the gearbox out in a second, we'll take a look at what that looks like underneath the gearbox. So the next stage then is let's get the pistol grip off. Right, so we're going to need, I think, it's the Torx 6 again. Yep, so we're going to need the Torx 6 because I've got a little tiny screw in the back here. I'm going to undo that. And then we need a slightly bigger one, it might be the 8. It is the 8 in the bigger one there. Now don't forget, obviously I have already changed the motor in this, so this motor will be different. So I'll lift that out. There's our base plate. There is the motor, so I'm just going to lift out the 1, 2. Now, don't forget in this, the motor is rotated, so the red terminal is on the back, the black is on the front. So I'll lift the motor out. There's my infinity motor. And as we traditionally find, the red has come up the front there, and the black has come out at the back hole at the back. But then what we find is that the red is sort of compressed at the front, the black has come round here, and then up and onto the black terminal. So then we're left with 2 Phillips head screws down in the pistol grip. So I'm just going to rest the gearbox down. One. The other one's in there. So I'm just going to wiggle this off gently, making sure that these connectors don't catch on the edge there, just because we don't want to damage them by pulling on them too much. Get the pistol grip out of the way. Now all we've got left is this body pin and this body pin here to remove. So I'm just looking for the teeth on that pin, which it looks like the teeth are on this side, on the left hand side of the receiver. I'm just going to take this off camera and tap this out. So I was right, the teeth were on the left hand side. It took well, as you can see from the end of the pin, it took some real cracking to get out of there. So now all that we need to do is just push this back body pin in, which again needs a good whack. There we go. So that slides through, and then the gearbox is released. Obviously we will be doing the full reassembly in a minute. So, got our standard KWA gearbox. So we've got the little markings on the side here that indicate where the selector plate should be for the obviously safe, semi and auto. And we've got fairly standard looking, just like everything else, sort of KWA gearbox. So let's get our Torx 10, which doesn't stay in. Don't forget, when you're taking these screws out of these gearboxes, they all come with a little ring washer on them. Ring, I couldn't even think of washer then. Washer on them. So make sure that you keep them all together. Now, all the screws across the top are the same length, so they can all be kept together, but in no particular order. And then all the screws, the rest of the way around, are also in the same length, so it could be kept in any particular order. And because the spring's already out of the gearbox, there's no real compression in there that we need to worry about to remove. Do not remove this screw, that's the one for the ejection port system. We also forgot to have a look at the mag release as well, which I'll do in a second. There's another one, and the last screw. Slide the piston back forward. There we go. So all the screws are out. Just before we look inside the gearbox, so we've got down there just is that like a plastic? There goes the bolt release system, which just drops in place like that and does come out. Now it looks like a screw seated in the top. If I get the handle mag catch, that sits through there, and as you can see there, you pull the button back and it opens the mag up just like that. Now it does look, it's hard to tell, but that is a semi-free moving wheel. There we go. So it's semi-free moving wheel screwed into that piece there. And it does look like it's removable. That is a hex head. So I assume you can unscrew it from this side, and it's obviously spring loaded, so you can remove it if you wanted to. I'm not going to tempt fate, I'm going to leave it in because I'm happy with it in there. So, gearbox then, let's open this up and have a look. So I'm just going to hold down the cylinder and pop the side off. So we've got bearings all round. We have got our absolutely typical KWA gearbox, that is the type that is ready to take into it the gate tighten, which I will be doing in another video in future. Excuse me. Now there is a little bit of, I don't say a piece of copper wire, it might be like a thin strand out of a copper wire or something. It's not anything that's going to cause any damage because it's that fine and brittle. So the gears look like the typical standard KWA shimming, so it does look like there is some effort going into shimming. We've obviously got the delayer sector chip there. So I'm just going to pop the cylinder assembly off, and we'll take the spring off of there, and we'll check out what the compression's like. So there's a little bit of resistance. In fact, there's more resistance when I pull it back out than there is when I push it back in. So I may in a future upgrade look at just changing that O-ring and see what kind of difference that might make to my FPS, because I would hope that might improve my FPS a little bit. So we know there that that spring must be stronger than an M100 or SP100 because the FPS it's giving us 3 sort of 40, 50 should actually be a lot higher based on the strength of that spring. The rest of the gears then are their normal gear set. They look solid and hardy and well built. The anti-reversal latch is on a nice sort of relatively soft spring, but does the job well. A little bit of grease in there, obviously it needs greasing, possibly a bit too much. You've definitely got oil about as well, so it's obviously been oiled for move. A bit more evidence there that we've got some bushings obviously all around, and we have got this 2-part cut-off lever as well that obviously controls the auto and single shot. Let's just see if I can move it there. Look, you can see it there. Look, oh, engaging and disengaging from what would be the sector gear. There we go. So lift the spur gear up. So all fairly standard. You know, obviously they must just apply a standard shimming set. And there we go for our internal. So, you know, it's as we'd expect from the KWAs of late. It's nice, it's solid, it's looking good, it's looking healthy, it's going to run for a long time, and I can't wait to get to the point where I can put my Titan in it for that upped rate of fire. And I will do the, once you've seen the motor upgrade video, I'll sort of do a part of the Gate Titan video, or possibly as a further update to that, I will do a section where I compare the rates of fire on the original motor and the Infinity motor as well. So let's go for the reassembly then now. So I've dropped in the spur gear. I'm going to drop in the sector gear. I've just made sure that the bushings are lined up, the shims are lined up. I'm just going to rotate that round. I'm happy with that position there. And it's just sort of gone past the cut-off lever because it's sort of, you could feel the friction of it. I'm not going to do the anti-reversal latch yet for a second. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this spring back on here. I've got the air nozzle on, the tappet plate on. The tappet plate's nice and solid. And I'm going to make sure that the piston is as lined up as possible to slot straight in the tracks. Just looking there, I thought it was a little bit of wear. It just looks like it's perfectly fine. I thought it was a bit of wear on the sides of the piston, but it's fine. So next thing I'm going to do is the little holes here are going to go on the lug in the side there, and the spring is going to sit onto this pin right here. Just held the spring down, feeding it on, compressing the spring now, and then I'm pushing it back far enough that I can get that. Is that right? Doesn't feel quite right now. It's not right at the minute because I can see there that the cylinder is not flush with the sides of the gearbox. So there's something not right there. That's better. We're in there now. We're in the right position. That's where we want to be. Just checking it's not moving anywhere. Perfect. Okay. So next I'm going to put the anti-reversal latch back on. So the longer part goes up, the shorter part goes down, and the spring hooks into, you can see there, the little shaped bit there. Like that, hopefully. There we go. So as you can see there, the spring is hooked into there, and here we go. So I'm just going to drop this. Difficult doing it like this. I'm just going to drop this back into its hole there. There we go. And it should be springing that way out. The spring should be forcing it back out. Going to bring the gear in. Bevel gear. And I'm going to drop that in there. And there we go. Now, fortunately, these are well designed enough that the trigger spring's not too difficult and the anti-reversal latch is not too difficult, so it keeps it all together quite nicely and it's not going to generally ping out all over the place. So I'm going to chuck the side back on, made sure that the wiring is back in its tracks properly, so it's not getting nipped anywhere or it's going to not going to get caught by the motor. I will just push that down a touch. There we go. And then I'm going to drop the side of the gearbox on. There we go. So there we go. Now it's back together. So I'm looking to make sure that it's all nice and neat and flush all the way around, which it is. The piston can go back forward. And then I'm going to screw everything back into it again. At this point your hands are pretty greasy and oily, so it might be worth giving them a good wipe down and a wash before you do this part. Make sure that you put the little washers back on the screws before they go back in. It helps to tension them down. Okay, keep the tension on the gearbox. That's all screwed back together now, so we're going to drop this back into the receiver and start rebuilding it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to feed the fuse and the battery connector back through the back there. This will actually be easy once the gate's in it. There we go. I'm going to feed the motor wires down the bottom there. Obviously you guys will be doing it on your tabletop. I'm having to do it floating in the air to keep it up near the camera. Now, as this is going back in the body, two things. First one, make sure your bolt release goes back in. That's important. I'm going to do that in a second actually. Next thing is make sure that the selector and the selector here are in the right position. So I find it tends to be easier to just put it on the single, just because it's easier to keep it on that position to drop it in. And we're then going to lift it back up ever so slightly, more than slightly. I'm going to drop that in place. There we go. I'm looking to make sure that the spring is not sort of catching or anything under there. And I'm just going to drop it in place. I can check now, push the back body pin in, there we go. So I can check it's in the single, set it at safe setting, then it's in single, then it's in full auto. So I know that that's in the right position. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this body pin back in. Now I know it came out from this side, so I'm just going to take it off camera. I'm just going to use a tool just to tap it back in. That thing really didn't want to go in there, but got it in the end. So now I've got this body pin in and this body pin in, so we can start sort of assembling everything else back together. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the pistol grip on. So I'm just going to carefully feed the wires back up the hole. So the red one is going in the front one there, it's coming up the front. The black one is going to go in the back. I'm just going to drop that in position. There we go. And then I can bring the screws in. This is probably one of the most fiddliest parts because these screws don't often stay on the end of the screwdriver as long as they should. There we go, that's one in. Tighten that down. Bring the other one in. Now. And there it goes. And this is the one that will take 5 minutes to get in. Come back later and watch Pheas rage. Actually, third attempt, there we go. And tighten down. So, I'm not going to put the motor in just yet. I'm just going to put a few other components on first, then we'll put the motor in. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this buffer tube in. So I'm just going to hold the wiring down and to the left this time, and I'm just going to start screwing that in. It should, might take a few attempts to just get it lined up properly with its threads. There we go. Now, if I tighten it as far as it goes, you can see there it's not in the right position. So I just wind it back a little bit, and there we go, that's in the right position. And this is when we use the sling loop, the rear sling loop is part of the system to centralize it. So I'm just going to put that over there. That's going to drop into place there. There we go. And then we're going to tighten this down. I use the Torx 8 to tighten that down. Maybe it is a 10. This is a 10. There we go. Just wasn't very tight before, so always check all your screws are tightened down when you first get a new gun. So that does have a little bit of play on it, but that's how it should be. That's more or less how it's designed. So I'm happy with that. At this point now, I can put the stock assembly back on quite happily. So I'm just going to bring this in. I'm going to feed the fuse and the battery connector in, and then the wire in, and then this slides down and it just goes nicely onto the lugs. I have missed a part. Well done, those of you that Eagle Eye spotted. I forgot to put the spring assembly back in. So non-linear spring, so we've got a tight coil at the back, we've got a compressed section in the middle, and it's open at the end. So this tight compression on this spring is going to go on the spring guide, and that's just going to slide all the way in, and this will push in at an angle. So as you can see there, it's going at an angle, it pushes in, and it's a quarter turn. There we go. There we go. And it pushes back, it comes back out again. I use the needle nose then just to help me, just because some of those corners are a bit sharp and I didn't want to cut myself. So we're now ready then to put the retaining plate back in. So if I wanted to adjust the FPS, now would be the time to do it. I'm going to drop that in. And wouldn't you know it, it's gone in first time. Well, that's it's not often that happens. So all I did there was I just basically used my finger to hold it against the upper side and just slowly lowered it down until it dropped onto position, and then I've just tightened it down with that as well. So the wiring can then go back in, out of the way. The end cap can go back on, the stock can start to go back in as well. Leave it out for now. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the motor now. So the red wire is going to stay across the front. The black wire is going to come across this way, making sure it doesn't block the motor going into the gearbox. There we go. And then the red terminal is going to go to the back of the pistol grip. There we go. So I'm going to put the black terminal on first because it's easiest to reach and it saves hassle. Then the red terminal reaches round and goes on as well. There we go. So I'm just going to sort of twist these away from this middle part a little bit, just because when we bring this in, I don't want them to get in the way of these two clips here. So that's just going to sit, just going to wiggle it in, and that should freely and easily go down flush. Now it will spring back up because the motor's obviously on a spring. Now what I found it easier to do here is to put the little screw in first. So put the little screw in first using the T6. So this is a Torx 6 again. And I'm going to screw that in first. That's in. Then I'm going to use the, I think it's the T8 for the other screw. There we go, that's the next one. So our lower's nearly finished. Next thing we'll do is we'll bring in the mag catch. So we'll drop that into place. Nice and easy. That can come in a little bit now. Drop the spring into place. Get the button. Now the button's a little bit springy, so I'm going to load the screw into it. I'm going to make sure I've got the right bit. So this is the T8 and so the screws now going in. So what I can do here now is I'm just going to hold the button down onto the connecting rod so it keeps its orientation. Tighten this the rest of the way down. There we go, tighten that off. So we've now got working mag release. Perfect, happy with that. Next thing we're going to do, before I put the charging handle back on, we're going to reassemble the barrel and the hop unit. Excuse me. So what I'm going to do is to make this a little, to make this a touch easier, I couldn't decide then what to do. So I'm going to mount the barrel in first. So obviously keeping in mind this little groove in the bottom of the barrel needs to sit at the bottom here. I'm then going to put the C-clip back in. Now that should, if this is all in the right position, drop into place. There we go. And you can see there it's sat flush with the hop unit. That's how it should be. This brass clip then just slides into there. That helps to stabilise the barrel in the hop unit. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chuck this back over. We're going to put the tensioner back in there. Excuse me, itchy nose. And I'm going to gently just push that into place, making sure that I keep the tensioner. It's better if you do it upside down. I'm trying to show you from the side. I'm just going to drop that in there like that. I'm then going to put the pin back in, making sure it's lined up so it goes in easily. Which is not very easy to do at all. There we go. And then next thing I'm going to do, so got that lined up, the tensioner was in there. Now just to make sure it's in there and it's in the right place, I'm going to put the adjustment dial on. I'm going to turn the hot all the way up. And there it is, there is the hot going down now. That doesn't seem as much as before, so I suspect the tensioner has moved. So I'm just going to tinker again with that. So if you're ever thinking about taking out the tensioner without, it's obviously a little bit of a faff to do and achieve properly. And it has moved. In fact, it's escaped. There it is. I think I've got that lined up now. Hopefully that's in the right place, so let's try the hop adjustment again. Much better, there we go. So, I don't know if you can see that. There we go. Miles more adjustment now, that's exactly where it should be. So then, the O-ring goes on. Keep the adjustment dial in place. I'm going to turn that back down again because we don't need any hop on yet. I'm going to slide the spring back on the front there. I'm going to slide in fact, actually, before I put those back in, let's put the handguard back on. It just slides back on. It is a little bit of a firm fit. There we go. So we've got one screw going in from this right hand side and two going in from this left hand side. And they are the 2.5mm, I don't actually know if they're 2.5mm, 2.5 hex head screws. Just going to tighten that one in initially, flip and do the other one. Tighten that down. Right, now that they're all in, I'm going to tighten them all down again, just to make sure it's nice and secure and stable. And they're as tight as I can make them. It's worth tightening it, checking them again. As you tighten one, it might loosen up the others. There we go, perfect. Next thing I can do is drop the flash hider in. So put the little ring back, or mini 1 coil of spring. Not forgetting this is a negative thread. There we go. Line that up. I need the Torx 6 to get down there. And tighten that in. Hope that wasn't too off camera. So tighten that in. That's not going anywhere. It's looking pretty damn good. And the next thing we're going to do is slide that in there, in from the back, all the way in. I'm then going to place this plate in against the front there. I'm going to push the hop in, and the hop sits behind it. Now it will pop out quite easily like that. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring the charging handle assembly back in. So being very delicate with it again. I'm just going to open that up. I'm going to bring that forward. Now I'm going to tilt it back towards me again when it wants to. Ooh, be careful. Go. Now, so I'm setting the charging handle in place. I've pushed the not charging handle, I've pushed the plate back in place. The charging handle's partially in, so I'm just going to push this rod back forward. we go. There we go. So just pushed it forward and then it drops down into there. And now I should be able to do that. Now it will partially retain forward, but this spring gives it the real pull back forward. Now I'm just going to make sure that this stays up and in there and it's behind the little screw there. So the last bit then, lift that back up, push that back in. Now I'm going to keep my thumb on that until the last possible second. I need to open up, there it goes again. I need to open up this body pin. There we go. There we go. So now I'm just going to very carefully line it up, sliding it in. It's fine that it's done that. Now it just needs to click in at the back, drop the body pin in. There we go, nice stiff body pin. And then there we've got a fully working KWA RN47, disassembled, internally reviewed, reassembled. So I hope that's been helpful to you. I hope you've enjoyed that. I have enjoyed that a lot. Please do make sure you like, comment and subscribe, especially the liking, because it's going to really help me out, get seen by the YouTube algorithm. And make sure you check out my socials in the link below in the description, and I will see you next time. Bye.